Sometimes board games can bring us all together. And sometimes not.
Sorry, you grew up a bad person.
Wow, you're a really good liar.
It may be a great game. I don't know because it's been so damaging to my family and my friends.
A good thing in this game, but now I feel guilty.
It wasn't your fault. All right, starting off might be the most classic, famous fight starting game of all time. It's the only game I've ever had a board flipped in my face on. This is Monopoly.
Monopoly.
For a game that you basically have no control over what you do, it makes people so mad.
It does.
Like, I have had adults stomp out of the room on Monopoly. I'm like, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. It is an unbelievable game how mad it makes people.
Yes. Now before I tell you my number 10, I have to tell you a little story. I'm a nice person, and I struggled coming up with 10 games for this list. But Joel told me I had to because he said he had a lot of baggage and things to get off his chest. So my number 10 is Diplomacy, which I have seen from personal experience. It's like one of the original, but you said you weren't going to attack me. It's like, that's why we're trying to win a war. I lied. So, and the amount of work it takes to get into that game. Played it a long time ago, never played it again because it starts fights.
I read a forum thread a couple days ago from a guy who was making a case for why player elimination is awesome in games. Mm-hmm. And he heard is the opposite opinion I've ever heard. He said it's only awesome when the game is long because you should feel the weight of the punishment. And I read it like 4 times. I'm like, he has to be joking. And he brought up diplomacy. He's like, diplomacy is great. He's like, because then if you mess up early, he's like, you feel the weight of that for hours.
Everyone else goes on having fun.
I think he was serious. I think it was seriously like, this is awesome. I'm like, this is exactly what I hate
It's
about
like
players.
Life. If you lose,
You're dead.
You're dead.
My number 9 is a game I'm super fond of, but does have the tendency to make people mad when there's a little bit of backstabbing here and there. This is a game called Cosmic Encounter.
Oh, nice.
And I've definitely been at the table during some fights during this game. And yeah, it's a game where a big part of the game is telling lies. And it has that moment always of like, you lied to me. It's like, yes.
Right.
Yes, I did. That's actually the game.
It's like, who do you want to support? And you're like, either way, someone's going to be mad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Someone always feels betrayed. I think this one's special because you're basically always fighting against the person who's closest to winning.
Yeah. So they're always mad.
You're always flipping immediately who's mad. Right. And you always feel like you're right there to win.
Right.
And when someone takes it away from you, it's like,
oh, you didn't do that to them when they were close. Yeah. My number 9 is not the only one on my list like this. My number 9 is a very nice game called Tokaido. And this kind of leads into the unwritten rules category, where someone says, oh, if you don't know Tokaido, it's a very nice, beautiful game. It is super aesthetic. When you play Tokaido, have you played it before?
Yeah.
It's like the little tiny score tracker that's that big. Everything's small. It feels like, very Japanese inspired. But the unwritten rules of like, oh, you were being mean in Tokaido. And it always happens in this game. You get to this moment where you're trying to complete, let's say, your panoramic picture, which are really pretty, right? And you're like, oh, I'm here. I know if I go here, I'll complete mine. If I don't, you have to go there and you complete yours. But like the nice rule. So in that case, am I allowed to be mean and take it first? Because if I don't, I know, unwritten rules, man. I'm not a fan. Just play Tokaido, enjoy the beauty, but also just try to win. And everyone can just be less stressed.
My number 8 is a game that only starts fights because it's a game that shouldn't be taken seriously. Oh. That some people just, they're not able to play that kind of game.
And they're wrong. I don't even know what you're going to say, but they're wrong.
They are. It's apples to apples. Because what inevitably happens at apples to apples, someone puts down a clever, hilarious card.
Yep.
And the person thinks like, that's so great, and they'll just pick that one, it's clever and hilarious. And someone will have one that's more technically correct. Right. And they'll be like, but
you said largest, and I did Jupiter, and that's larger.
Yeah. Ryan, you're supposed to pick the one that's right.
Yeah.
You're supposed to pick the right card. It's apples to apples.
Now let's wind the clock back 11 years, where you kept a list of offenses for apples to apples.
It was more than apples to apples.
So you were one of those people, but you've grown. Let's hope you've grown.
I haven't. And I'm the person who always starts the fight.
Exactly. Up next here, we have kind of in the same vein, a game that I have seen start some frustration and fight, and that is photosynthesis. And the issue with photosynthesis is kind of like Tokaido. It's so beautiful, but people have different expectations. But photosynthesis has like another issue, and that it's a pure strategy game. 100%. There's no luck. So it's just outsmart everyone. The only thing you're doing in the game is trying to decide the best location for your trees to get the most sunlight and to block other people. That's the only decision you have. Where do you want to grow up? How do you want to block people? People are like, no, we're playing friendly. You can't do that. And just like, so you're like, I'm going to plant a tree here, even though it's a bad choice.
Any game that you should play this way, but the rules don't indicate, it's always going to lead to frustration.
Yeah. Yep.
My number 7 is a classic fight starting game, and one that I remember throughout my childhood not being in the fights because I was a little too young, but witnessing them always break out in my family. And this is Axis and Allies.
Oh,
oh yeah. I swear, Axis and Allies is a long game, everybody. Like, it's a long, maybe 3-4 hours.
It can be short if you knew what you were doing, yeah.
But the fights afterwards take longer. Because they seem to go all through the night.
It's true.
And the volume just gets louder and louder. And oh my goodness. I've played Axis and Allies like twice.
Yeah.
It seems cool. It's like one of those, like, do you want to, like, play out a scenario?
Yeah.
It's a little bit dudes on the mappy. I know they're not dudes. They're like, ships and stuff. Yeah. A little bit dudes on the mappy, area control. Yeah. It's fine. I think the purchasing system's kind of cool. But oh my goodness, it brings out something.
Okay.
Can you explain this to me?
Okay, so no, I don't want to get frustrated by it. But one time I was playing the Japanese, and in order for the Japanese really have a chance, they have to. The game starts with Pearl Harbor. Your first turn is Japan. You have to attack Pearl Harbor, and so I did, and I lost. I rolled all I think you want to roll ones, right? I think I rolled all high numbers, and the Americans rolled like everything. Their guys with guns were shooting down my battleships, and I was like, what? It was insanity, and I lost everything. And then I had to hear for like the next couple hours, like that was because you didn't make a good strategic decision would have not been to lose that battle. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Can we just reset now? I'll take the L. Because I have no shot now. So I just sat there and just lost for a couple hours.
That's rough.
All right. My number 7 is a game that you like quite a bit, and I've come around on a little bit. That's Battlestar Galactica. And there might be multiple games like this on this list, but games where you're supposed to lie and people just don't get it. People don't get that you're supposed to lie. So you always have these moments where someone gets really passionate. Like, are you promising that you're not the person? And you're like, well, I mean, if I was, I would be lying. But they almost want to make it into a police interrogation game. You always smile when you lie, so we're going to keep asking you. And you're just like, calm down. But then they found out you really were lying. And you're like, wow, you're a really good liar. You're like, that's actually a good thing in this game, but now I feel guilty. And, hey, we're all here. And there's going to be 2 of us that are bad probably. And they're going to try to kill us all. And they are going to mess it up. You're like, but you messed the ship up so we ran out of fuel. I was supposed to. I don't know.
This one and Resistance both are the same thing, and the fights during the game
I almost
put
both on, but I didn't want to.
The fights during the game very fun until there's a certain way that people start to take it personally.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can like fight and yell like you're a filthy traitor, you filthy Cylon, I hate you. That's great. That's the fun of the game is like the rage in the moment.
Right.
But like, it's not like you walk away like you.
Right.
I mean, when you played the Cylon.
Hey guys, I'm gonna pick up some milk. Are you really this time? Can I trust you?
My number 6 is a game I've only played once. It's also the only game on the list where I personally started the fight. And I just...
only...
Yes. It's the only one where personally started this fight. Like, I exactly started it. And I didn't mean to. And I just gotta get this off my chest.
Okay.
There's this game called Quicks. It's fine. It's like Yahtzee. The whole gimmick of the game is you decide when you want to go out in Quicks. I was playing this with a person who really felt like this was their game. I wasn't really aware of this. Like, this is their game. They always win. They like very proud of this. And this happens. I probably have games. I'm like, yeah, like this is like the one I really crush at. But
you do?
Yeah, I don't actually. I'm not good at any games. But no, they very much felt like this is like their game. Yeah. And I was like stepping on something personal here. But like I was like, oh look, everyone's kind of like playing long. And I got a lot of points and I went out really quickly. And the first round they're like, oh, like you're usually like you want to go a little longer than that. And I was like, oh okay, yeah, makes sense. I was like, but I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like,
but I'm winning.
I'm the new guy playing the game. Like, I got lucky one round. It's like Yahtzee, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then the next round, it wasn't quite as fast, but I went out like on the shorter end. And the person like literally, she's like, yeah, we're not gonna play this game with you anymore. Like, it's just not really how you're supposed to play it. I was like, I'm sorry.
And you're like, I'm putting my foot down this time.
Like, I don't even like this kind of game. But I was like trying to like get it. I was like, I'm gonna, this seems like the way to go. I really made a deep cut.
My number 6 is Monopoly. And really for all the same reasons you just said. It's been around for so long. People take it so personally. It's crazy. And like you said, it's pretty lucky. Just have fun building your little things up and try to get a match. If you really want to win, don't give anyone a Monopoly for any reason ever. Don't let anyone pressure you into a trade you want. Just go la 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 and make it funny. But people get so upset, like they get so mad when they're like, I'm offering you the deal of your life. And you're like, no, it gives you a Monopoly. I'm giving you 2,000. You know how much you paid for that? I'm giving you 2,000, but it gives you a Monopoly. And people take it way too personal. Don't be that guy.
Just remember, it's not your fault.
Not your fault.
My number 5 is a game that typically leads to fights for the same reason you've had a couple on before.
Okay.
And that is, there is like an unspoken, this is what you should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I'm talking Ticket to Ride.
Oh.
You play Ticket to Ride, blocking people is a great strategy, and just building the long railroads is a great strategy, just to get the points. Those are both really good ways to play the game.
But it's not in the spirit of the game, Joel.
A lot of people feel like if you don't have a route to someone, you can't block them. And I've played with people who actually like house rule, like you're not allowed to do it. You can't build something that's not a route. And that you can't build for the big ones unless you have a route that way. Which to me is weird because it makes the outcome a little more like deterministic. Like you just get a card. If you get a route along there, you're allowed to do this.
Yeah.
And then conflicts end up being manufactured. I don't know. I just like, it's a game about winning and getting points. And so if I want to build that railroad, it's your last route into your city, let me do it.
Yeah. Now, while I do agree with you, I do support house rules, as seen by a video we're making soon. My number 5, which is actually where my list originally started before I had to find 5 more to, match your level of hate. But my next 5, you have a lot of trauma. My next 5 are going to get a little more passionate. So my number 5, you already said, which haven't had a lot of crossover yet, but you already said my number 5, Cosmic Encounter. But slightly different reason to you. I think it can lead to hate because of the turn order, which when you teach new players, especially the first few times through, you're always going to have that moment where, because it's so specific, so many little rules, you're like, and I won, and someone's like, technically you had to play that in this phase. And it just, again, not everyone's going to be able to play it 5 times, so they're really comfortable with the rules. So it just has that potential to be like, well, but you did that earlier, yeah, but that was this phase. And even if you're doing everything right, it's just hard for a new player to absorb all those, as we know, all those phase orders. So it's good. I love that it's so detailed. Do this, and then this, and this, and this. And you kind of have to with all the special powers. That's what makes the game fun, but it can lead to a fight or two.
My number 4, forgive me, is a category. And this is actually maybe the greatest quantity of fights that have ever started for a game for me. Okay. Somewhat related to your choice for Cosmic Encounter, it's teaching rules. People don't see eye to eye.
Just teaching rules, any game.
Any game.
Oh, yeah.
Literally any game, teaching rules. People don't see eye to eye. Like, some people who have never played a game really want to, like, chime in with input on how you're teaching the game to other people. But they themselves have not played the game. And it's a really confusing thing. You're like, I'm trying to teach this game to a group, and someone with a more dominant personality is, like, saying things. You're like, you've not played this before, and you're not... He's not correct about that. Stop listening to this guy. And then teaching rules is just hard.
Yeah.
And it starts fights, and then people may feel differently about them.
Yep.
Or occasionally, what can happen in start fights is someone, like, you explain a rule, and someone's like, that's kind of a dumb rule. I don't like that.
You don't know.
You're like, we haven't played the game. They're like, we just change it. No! We haven't played the game yet.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll play some rounds. And we'll then be like, yeah, that's not a great rule. But I'm like, I'm not like confident enough to be like, let's change the rules to this game we've never played.
Right.
Because it doesn't sound like that's going to balance right.
The other one I've seen a lot is similar, but when someone like, you're teaching a game and someone's like, unless we play, it's not going to make sense. And someone's just kind of like, well, if we play, I need to know the rules before I play. And you're like, okay, I can't make you both happy, but I'm the one who took the time to read the rules. Just shut up and let me explain. Because some people want the big picture. Some people want the small picture. You can't make both of those people happy at the same time. If you're playing one-on-one, you can cater more. But if you're teaching 4 people at once, you're just like, especially when you get like, all right, guys, oh, I see, we trade in there and get victory points. Like, yes, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, man, that's rough.
Yeah.
But it's like, what about this really specific thing on this card I drew? You're like, let's not do it this way.
I already talked about Tokaido and photosynthesis. His games that kind of have unwritten rules, but I want to do my original unwritten rule game. At least the first one I really played that had this like nicety rule to it, and that's Carcassonne. And that's the first game I've ever played where I was being aggressive, and people are like, we play this game nicer. Like, you shouldn't be overly aggressive. And you're like, okay. Or some people think it's okay to try jumping on people's castles. And some people are like, well, only if it just happened to work out that way. Or the big one in Carcassonne is you see someone else is about to finish a castle, and you draw a particular piece that doesn't really help you, but it will make it impossible for them to ever finish their castle, or impossible to finish without letting you get on. Are you allowed to put it there? And I'm like, yes, we're trying to win. And they're my competition. That just makes them lose 15 points. But that's the first one I played that kind of had that. Like, I remember doing a move and people were kind of like, that's not cool. And I was like, oh, I kind of come, actually, it's a very early modern board game that I play. And I come from this classic games where everyone's sitting on a table, we're trying to win. And there's no nice, you're just trying to win. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just put this here. And people are like, oh, how could you? I'm like, oh, because it blocks you and messes you up. That's why I did that. And people were like, we don't play like that. I was like, oh, I didn't know that yet. But it's just not very inviting to new players. If you guys want to do that in your family or your group and have that rule, that I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm 100% for it. Some people want to do the nice ticket to ride thing, but at least be inviting to new players. You don't expect them to know that coming in. Like, oh, of course, we're not jerks here. You should have known that. And like some
I'm sorry, you grew up a bad person.
Sorry, your parents didn't raise you right. But what we do here is so just not having those expectations placed on people. And if they do, make sure that's in the rules. Explain the rules of the game. You're not allowed to place a piece that messes up someone else's stuff, because some games you're supposed to do that stuff, and some games you're not. And don't expect people to know from the vibe of the box which kind of game it is.
My number 3 game often starts fights because it always feels very personal. This is an area control game called Small World. And man, I honestly would go out to say more than half the games I played of Small World, one person has left the table.
That's true. That's probably true. Yeah.
And like, it is very common because in Small World, you have to decide who you're going to go after to get the most points on your turn. And oftentimes what makes sense is going after the weaker person so that you can take more land.
Yeah.
But that often leads to that weaker person then feeling like, oh, you just came after me while I was down, and then I had to, go into decline and waste another turn, and like then they're frustrated about it. But the thing is, in that game, it's all in your hands. Like, you could always attack someone else, but you should always make the best decision to get the most points on your turn. Right? But or to get the most defensible points for the next turn. But like, it's all in your hands. So I think people take it really personally because it's like, I chose to attack you. I could have attacked the 3 other people, but I saw a gap in your race, and so I cut through your species, cut them all down, and that was the best way for me. And it is personal to that extent, but it's not like personal. It's that you make the best decision for yourself, but it often leads to you going after one person.
Right, and you could have it happen where you're coming back on the board, and you're just trying to decide, who do I think is winning?
Yeah,
I'm going to go after the winner because that's the best chance of me winning. But then it's 2 people pleading their case of why they're not winning, and you're just like, oh, I can do math too, but I don't know. Like, well, but you see, they're this, and they have the chance to this on the turn, they have the extra coin here, and I'm like, I'm just going to attack you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. To be fair, Small World has a classic problem with 3 players that I think a lot of 3-player games have, where the loser determines the winner almost every game. It's almost a better game not to whip out with 3. I've decided.
2 or 4.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or 8. It's great.
I've never tried 8.
You ever played a full game?
No.
If we ever have the chance.
A full game? What, snob?
Dude, sorry. Since I got a snobby. Dude, it's cool. You haven't had the full
never
party?
played the real experience. My number 3 is a successor to Monopoly in so many ways, and also in the manner of how many fights it causes, and that is Catan. Catan is similar to Monopoly in 2 ways. There's the negotiation factor, which leads to a whole bunch of fights. Like, well, I said I wanted that right before he said they wanted that trade, and you don't want to trade any stone to me because if you give me, or clay, if you give me clay, I'll get the longest road. You're like, exactly. I'd rather give it to the bank so no one gets the clay. It's a strategy. And then there's also the whole thing of Monopoly too, where it's a lot of randomness. And sometimes you have better numbers. And I don't know, kind of like you were saying, maybe half of the games of Catan end up with one player really angry because the rolls didn't go their way. And you're just like, yeah, you had 8s and 9s and 6s. That's a great strategy. Sometimes dice do that to you. And you can't take it too personally in Catan, but it's a fight starter because of trading and the randomness.
My number 2 is a game that you've already mentioned on your list.
Okay.
And it is probably like maybe second to Monopoly, like the classic this started fights game.
Okay.
And it is Diplomacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Diplomacy maybe it's a great game. I'm sorry. I was going to say it's not a good game. It may be a great game. I don't know because it's been so damaging to my family and my friends. I don't know if it's good. I really don't know if it's a good game because I think I've played 3 games of Diplomacy in my memory. And I think 2 of them didn't finish.
Right.
Because there was just too much fighting. Yeah. And it was like, it got too long, too much fighting, and we just like gave up. Right. And I think one of them did finish, same deal. People are so mad. And yeah, it's for all the reasons we've already said. Like, you just constantly feel betrayed. And like, yes, it's a game of betrayal and lies.
Right.
And
I would have protected you.
I would have.
You know the meme, like, this is when my brain chemistry was changed or altered to like Diplomacy.
It is. Like, oh, you can't trust nobody.
No. My number 2 is the classic game of world domination, and that is Risk. Oh, yeah, and here's the thing, kind of like Diplomacy, Risk was more of a childhood game that always seemed to end in fights. Someone finally gets the continent of Asia and they're going to get all those bonus points, and then someone's like, I took away one, which is what you do, right? You can't let them get the bonus people. The one poor person stuck in Australia the whole time, getting a couple bonus troops every turn, and I actually played it as an adult recently because I was like, I want to just give it a shot. I played with a child, and I found out it was so easy with some global strategy to just dominate them. And I'm like, it's a terrible game. I'm just trying so hard to lose.
Were you like, you stupid little kid?
No, I was just trying. I lost every time. It was hard to lose. It was really hard. This game it just caused so many fights. They were so mad because it kept rolling badly. And I'm like, I can't help you with this. Like, some games you can help people who are worse than you out by doing inferior actions. It's kind of like, yeah, we fought and you died again. That stinks. Now I have to place this many more troops on my turn. I don't have a choice. It's just a lot of fights.
Alrighty, my number 1.
Oh, number 1 already.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's not Risk.
Okay.
I should have included Risk. It was on my short list. Don't know why I didn't, but whatever. We'll run past that. My number 1 is a game that I can tell you how to fix right now, but no one ever listens to me.
Wow. Some baggage here.
I fixed this game like a decade ago, and I've been telling people the key is stop playing early. It's a game called Scattergories. Oh my goodness. Here's my secret. You commit, you're going to play 3 rounds of Scattergories and you're going to put it away. That's it. You go into that 4th round. The last time I played, we got into the 4th round, it was immediate. It's something about that second sheet. People suddenly get like, well, you let this one go 2 rounds ago, and now you're not. This game is so, it might be the worst game ever, actually. I need to put it on like, I hate Scattergories because maybe I hate other people, but it's also, I'm not a word game guy, but then you sit there, you write down words, there's a double, triple point rule if you do this, and then people are like, you can't do adjectives, and some people are like, well, it's not an adjective because it's actually always goes with this. It's a common household item that's always grouped as 2, so it's not really an adjective. I'm like, well, it is an adjective.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, you let this one go, and then it's like, we're not going to let this one go, and it is a game that shouldn't be subjective. It's completely subjective. It's just a completely subjective game. It's good for 3 rounds, but then you put it back. You put it back in the box. The problem is everyone's like, we should go through all 12.
It's going well.
Yeah, I'm like, and you should stop while you're ahead.
Yeah. Now my number 1 has a chance of offending some people, but there's one person in the world who's going to love it, and that's you. Because my number 1, I saved my only category for last.
A category. I love categories.
Word games.
Yes.
Now, I like word games more than you in general. I don't despise we differ. I like card games. You don't like card games, but I think word games can be fine. They can be pretty fun. Yeah. But word games have two huge issues that always cause fights. One of them is always word games. Like Hit or Miss is a fun word game, but eventually people start going, "Oh, you stretched it a little much." The first round's always like, "Oh, that was funny," because that is roughly related to that concept. Then by the end, it's like, "No, we said things on a picnic, and we're expecting baskets and sandwiches and watermelon," and it gets more intense. But the other, even bigger issue with word games, I'm talking about like Scrabble, but really any word game since Scrabble, is which dictionary do you use? And that's just a not solvable problem. Are we counting anything in the dictionary? Are we counting the Scrabble dictionary? Do we count foreign words? Like all word games. I just have been in almost any other category. Like bluffing games, of course, has hurt feelings, but word games is more frustrating. It's like, well, let's just be like a lighthearted game to play. Maybe some people who aren't as into board games sometimes like word games though, so it should be more welcoming. But then always is just, yeah, you're right. You get about like 30, 40 minutes in, and that one first time someone's like, well, you allowed that. And it's like, oh no. It's like, let's just pull out the dictionary. And you're like, no, don't. And then once you go down that road, people are kind of like, I'm looking for my word right now. I'm looking for it.
If your board game requires a dictionary, it's not fun.
If you want to let us know, you need to be like Joel and get a few things off your chest. Use this as therapy.
I feel like I had therapy. I'm like, man, I got some like stories that I kind of been holding inside off my chest. I've just had it in for a while. Like, I feel like I gotta let it off to you. You gotta speak a few things that I really connected with. I feel like I've been heard by like a huge, massive YouTube audience, and like,
so I'm gonna charge you for it then.
Oh. If you want to get charged for being part of a support group, click right here to join the channel members, and where we post some exclusive videos for the channel, but it's mostly just a great way you could support us if you like what we're doing here.
Thanks so much for watching. See ya.
Bye.